بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أهلا ومرحبا بكم في حلقة جديدة من يونس توك. Welcome to a new episode of my podcast Yunus Talk. Our guest is Yusuf Di Lorenzo. Hi, Mr. Yusuf.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Pleased to be with you today.
Me too. Thanks for accepting my invitation to be my guest in this podcast. So let's start with the first question. Who is Yusuf? Introduce yourself. Who is Yusuf Di Lorenzo? And who is E.J. Lewis, the literary band name you write under? What is the relationship between the two?
Yes, Bismillah. Yusuf Di Lorenzo is actually Anthony Di Lorenzo, born to Sicilian parents here in the United States. My father was born on the island of Salina, just north of Sicily. I discovered that, we have relations there and family and so on. But anyway, I grew up here in the United States. Went to prep school and to university in the United States, and then I became interested in the Spanish language, which led me to El Maghreb, where I became interested in the Arabic language, and thereafter in Din al-Islam. So this was about 1970, a while back, and I converted to Islam. Was advised by my brothers in North Africa that I should go and study in Cairo, which I did. I studied at Al-Azhar, Jami' Al-Azhar.
MashaAllah.
And alhamdulillah. And then I was, because of the political situation, if you remember, or maybe you don't remember, but this was post-Suez Canal. The Russians were occupying, in a sense, intellectually and otherwise, politically, certainly, Egypt. And I was required to, as a U.S. citizen, to renew my papers after every 3 or 4 days, actually 4 days. I had to go to El Mugamma to renew my passport and, my iqama. And I became great friends with the police, even though they were just happy that they were happy that I was learning their language, and they helped me with it very much. Then they told me that I needed to really, at Al-Azhar, Sheikh Omar al-Faham, alayhi rahmatullah, advised me, alayhi rahmatullah, he was a great man. He advised me I should go to India, Roh al-Hind. So that's what I did. I went to India. I studied actually in Pakistan for, I ended up staying there 17 years.
Wow.
I married there. I did a 10-year course as a student and a teacher at a traditional madrasa. And that accounts for my background in fiqh, especially fiqh al-mu'amalat. And so my day job nowadays, Yusuf Talal, is as advisor to financial institutions around the world. For example, I am Rais Hayat Raqaba Shar'iyya for Dow Jones Islamic indexes worldwide. And I advise many banks and asset managers around the world. So that's Yusuf. A.J. Lewis is what I do in my spare time. So it's always been a love of mine, fiction basically, and history. And so I spent a great deal of time reading Islamic history, obviously, and that brought me to closer to the idea of writing. A.J. Lewis is my mother's maiden name, her family, is the Lewis family. So that accounts for that name.
Okay, I can see you get a lot of idea from your own personal life.
Yes.
I can see that in your the mysteries of Muhammad al-Malfi. So let's go to the next question, and it is from one of my friends. My friend, what difficulties did you encounter while writing this work, considering the dual displacement it required, moving back in time by almost 2 centuries and grounding the narrative in Algerian city? How did you manage to authentically render and inhabit that world?
Yes, that's a good question. In a sense, anyone who lives in North Africa today, mashallah, understands something, probably a great deal, about what happened there in the past. You can't live there without understanding the past. I mean, the culture in each one of the North African states is very much tied uh, to history. And so I've spent time in North Africa in different countries, although not officially in Algiers or Algeria. That's the one I haven't visited. But nonetheless, so there's a great, obviously, I will confess, there's a great leap of imagination here. But understanding the culture and then having the ability to access, original sources or secondary sources in the different languages, especially through the classical Arabic archives and so on, and the books published in those countries by fine ulama and udaba. And shu'ara. There's a great deal of, there's a huge ocean of culture there. And so, I thought about Aljazair, especially for its position in the Mediterranean. Like I said, I have a family background in the Mediterranean. And it turns out from my DNA, it turns out I actually have blood from North Africa as well, or DNA from North Africa. But in any case, the point is that it's possible. I mean, I thought of Algiers especially as a city strategically located. I mean, think of the Strait of Hormuz nowadays and Iran, acting as a gatekeeper to a strategic place on Earth. It was the same for Algeria, Algiers, especially the city of Algiers, and the northern coastal towns, Annaba, and they acted in a sense as gatekeepers to the Mediterranean, and the Mediterranean has historically been a source of riches, a great source of wealth for, especially during before the modern period, for 400 or 500, or even more than that, actually, for several thousands of years. It was rich. It was the pathway to riches further east, moving west. And Algeria was especially placed as a gatekeeper. And not only a gatekeeper, but as a place where different cultures, yes, they collided, but they also came together and worked together. So there have been a lot of studies now, especially I'm aware of in English, about the number of Europeans who came over in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries to become a part of that thriving society in Algiers, because it was so advanced and in so many ways. I mean, materially, it was more comfortable than to live there than to live in Europe. There were certainly more opportunities. It was, even though the Turks, ruled with a strong hand, nonetheless, they were open to change, and they were open to actually welcoming to people from all over the place, and so it became a society, quite an open society, where there was a great deal of potential. And I thought of, especially of the city of Amsterdam up north, where ideas were welcomed. Different religious sects were the doors were open to them as well. Algiers, down south, at the other end of Europe, was a similar kind of society. It was based on trade. It had a huge agricultural base of its own. It was very successful in promoting itself, and there was a lot of exchange, even though there was opposition from Europe. And Europeans were essentially very much not only competitors, but they were really, from time to time, I mean, they respected Algiers as a city. And so for centuries, they offered tribute to the rulers, and for good reason. It was a working arrangement that benefited all sides. So I thought it was, of that society as kind of a place to talk about ideals and ideas and, best case scenarios. And so that's why I chose that particular city, Algiers, as the focal point for my fiction.
Thank you very much for this insightful and thorough answer. So the third question is AI and creative writing. As we know, there is a lot of talking about this subject right now. There is ongoing debate about artificial intelligence and creative writing. What is your stance on this matter? How can a creative writer and a human being in general use AI in creative writing ethically, while remaining with an ethical framework?
Yes, that's a very good question. I explained to you, I have two sides to me. I have my day job in business, and I have my interest in fiction, which is a different compartment. Insofar as my business life is concerned, I see the value of AI every day. I mean, it's fabulous things that can be done in terms of saving time and pooling resources, and it's mind-boggling in a way. But with regard to creativity, I honestly have my doubts. I don't see that, so much of literature is really aimed at edifying, bringing up the moral level of readers, or not only their moral level, but bringing to readers something more than just information, which is the limit for AI. AI is great for information, but putting it together in a way that's meaningful for human beings, for our lives, our moral and societal, civil lives, it doesn't even come close. and for that reason, I have serious doubts about about its use in creative work of any kind. My wife, for example, is an artist. She does oil paintings, and the debate amongst her fellow artists continues because AI can be used to create images. And there, I can understand, yes, it has commercial value for the creation of images. But when it comes to literature, there's just no way in the world that it can produce anything. Even if it could produce poetry in rhyme and meter, فاعلون مستفعلون and so on and so forth. I don't see it producing anything of any value whatsoever. Wallahu a'lam. But it's still early days. But I cannot see how a machine can emulate in any way the moral sense of a human being.
In your point of view, is the AI sentient or no?
No,
Is
of
it
course
conscious?
not. No. It's a machine. Yeah. And there's no way, and people talk about that happening in the future. Well, again, it looks like it talks like it sounds like it produces things that, yeah, maybe. But there's no emotion to it. There's no way that you can ingrain those sorts of things and a sense of morality, a sense of humanity. No.
Okay, so I'm curious. I have a question in your day job, financial. So why we don't, if the AI is that good in math, commutation, and such thing, why we don't have very profitable automation tool like because it can do due diligence, a lot of things, searching companies. Why is that not on the table? AI
Uh,
analyzes and profit, and while we are asleep, for example, because it's very good in math and such things. So why? I wonder. I wonder. Genuinely, I wonder.
well, I'm not sure I understand the question. What was it? What are you asking?
If let me reframe it. If
Hmm.
the AI is very good in math, in prospecting, in due diligence of why we don't have AI is very good without human in investing. We gave it, for example, $10,000 and returned million. Why not? Why?
Well, who says that we don't?
I
Even
don't know.
look.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, look. Over the course of my career, I've worked with investment managers, especially stocks and bonds, those markets. Um, I mean, I made my first investment in the stock market when I was 13 years old, but that was as a child. But as an adult and understanding, I've worked with investment managers who, they walk me into a room with maybe 30 computers and 30 geniuses sitting behind those computers, really smart people, straight out of colleges, mathematicians, PhDs, and so on. And what are they doing? They're cranking out numbers left and right, day and night, seriously. And that's even before AI. Now, using algorithms is nothing new for the investment world, for the professionals. Now, maybe you're asking about, what is available or not available to just like a day trader, like an ordinary everyday person. Um, tools are out there, and tools um, have been upgraded to take advantage of AI. So it's very much a part of the modern financial fintech landscape. Um, it's just a matter of access, I suppose, you know.
Resources, and it takes a lot of time and maybe expertise and money. Not just a computer, regular computer for they use more, for example, powerful computer and such things, big resources.
Well, yes, and access to data, you know, which is, you know, that access may cost thousands of dollars just for you know, that's a simple license. So it's out there. It's the old story, you know, that the wealthy get wealthier, and the rest of us, you know, sort of hang around and say, "MashaAllah."
Okay. Let's go to the fourth question, the global south and migration. We are witnessing a troubling phenomenon of migration from Algeria to countries in the North Hemisphere and from Muslim majority countries to the West. In your view, what explains the lack of global south in general? What are the causes and what is the way forward?
Well, the causes are obviously go really back to colonial days, unfortunately. Algeria has its own special circumstances, probably suffered more than many others, but nonetheless, look at the Congo under the Belgians, or look at Ethiopia under the Italians, and so on and so forth. There's so many examples of. And yes, I lived in the Indian subcontinent for nearly 20 years, and have kept up my contacts there as well. Basically, Europeans came in with their superior technology and with their commercial banking systems, and they took essentially they robbed those countries of resources. And when they left, they actually demanded repayment. I mean, this is pathetic, just the way that it happened. And we're still living through the aftermath of all of that destruction. They destroyed institutions. They took resources. They did their best to obliterate culture. You know, by bringing their own languages, by attempting to impose their own cultures, and so on and so forth. We all know the sad story. Why do we have this lingering sort of situation where people, insist on leaving and going where they have better opportunities? It's quite simple. It's because opportunities there are better. But maybe, as some of these societies, like the U.S., begins to implode from inside, from its greed, it's possible that people will start thinking about, improving.
Europe, for example.
Yeah, Europe is maybe a little bit different, but nonetheless, they're putting up walls. They're not inviting immigrants. They're not caring for them the way that they should, turning them away. Wallahu alam, I look at the world situation and I just, tawakkalna ala Allah.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, really. The best thing is to look inside of ourselves and see what we have. Otherwise, if we continue to look at, the pictures of, of presidents and prime ministers and billionaires and zillionaires hanging on the walls of public buildings and so on and so forth, that doesn't help anyone. It certainly doesn't help us, the individuals who are caught up in this horrible situation.
So rather, the change from the within.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. It comes down to the old question amongst the mutasawwifin ماذا يقدم التخلية أو التحلية. You know, do we purify ourselves, or do we bring something? Do we bring something in? You know, it's either way. It's the individual that counts.
Okay, so let's go to the fifth question. Why Algeria? What draws you to write about Algeria specifically?
Well, Algeria's history prior to the French is a history of accommodation. You know, it's a city sitting on the Mediterranean. Its port was deep and open. It invited traders from all over the world, coming from the east or from the west. It had an incredible influx of talent from every direction, from within and without. You know, when the Muslims were expelled from Al-Andalus in the 15th century, the end of the 15th century, then there was a huge influx of Muslims from that part of the world, and Jews
Yes.
as well. There was a vibrant Jewish community in Algiers as well, which lived quite peaceably with the local population. And then there were the adventurers from Europe, a lot of them. There was a time when European navies were paid by their sovereigns, and they developed, talents. They developed fleets and navigational skills and so on. And those navigators, those seagoing captains, learned very quickly that there was, a very thriving civilization on the coasts of North Africa, and many of them came over. Many of them converted to Islam. And lived very productive lives. So when you look at, for example, the Taifat al-Rais in Algiers, the sea captains.
Yes, البحر.
Yeah, they were a very powerful group and influential, and they contributed a great deal to the society. Now, of course, the European governments in competition with North Africa attempted to frame North African seagoing captains as pirates. But that wasn't the case at all. They were not pirates. They were corsairs. They were they had the official backing of the rulers, and so they were really essentially an unofficial navy. Because
yes.
because the states at that time, the North African states, Algiers amongst them, did not have huge budgets for military spending or to maintain navies. Instead, they gave permission to seagoing captains to act in the name of the sovereign, Dai or Al-Bai, during the Turkish period. So, it was kind of a very different system than what we have at the present time, but it made a lot of sense economically back in those days, that instead of maintaining a navy and spending all kinds of money to maintain it, the state simply gave permission to different ship owners and captains to go out and act on behalf of, in times of war, on behalf of the state. So that made for an interesting mix, actually. And I thought that the idea that the Turkish rulers actually at the time gave a lot of emphasis to people who were capable of performing. In other words, to people with qualifications, regardless of their backgrounds, even though they had their own rules about, who could continue to actually rule. But they gave a lot of leeway, a lot of power, actually, to the local tribes, to the heads of those tribes, and to people qualified to perform certain tasks. So you had people looking after, for example, قائد الزبالة, right?
Yes.
It didn't necessarily have to be a Turk. Didn't necessarily have to be anything. It was just someone who was capable of performing that particular task. And, that was the way it was. It was basically based on abilities. So in that sense, it was a very interesting society, and one that was that attracted me as a perfect place to situate fiction.
Okay, thank you. We have the last question. Closing words for Arab youth. Any advice or guidance you would like to share with young Arab reader, Algeria and otherwise in Arab world in general? Because we need it. I talk on behalf of them all.
Well, I appreciate the question. I appreciate the fact that you asked me that. I'm probably the last person to answer it. Nonetheless, my experience is that people need to look inside themselves. And looking inside of yourself includes looking at your elders. Look at the people who you grew up around and people whom you respect. People who have performed things that ordinarily you wouldn't expect from someone. Outstanding people who have performed services, who have created literature, art that reflects you and reflects your background. My own background is in Islamic law, and I look at just the ocean of literature produced by our Salaf, our predecessors in the Muslim world, and all around the Muslim world on that subject. And the same is true, right across the board. We have so much to be proud of. We have so much to draw from. Alhamdulillah, my sons have married. One is married to a Filipina. One is married to a Pakistaniya. One is married to Malaysia. Each one of these women represents, a window, in a sense, into cultures that we would ordinarily never look into, but they're Muslim cultures. And there's so much that we share, and there's so much that we can draw from. And you, in the Arab world, and especially in North Africa, you have an amazing history, cultural and otherwise, that you should be proud of and that you can draw from in your own life to make things better for yourself and for your families. And the values that you find there, you may never find anywhere else. So, alhamdulillah, there is so much that we have to give thanks for.
الحمد لله رب العالمين. شكرا أستاذ يوسف. بارك الله فيك. Thank you. الله يخليك. Thank you very much for listening to this podcast, Yunus Talks, and thank you, Yusuf. We see you in another opportunity, inshallah.
بإذن الله. شكرا. السلامة الله.